Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hi, friends. I hope that you are so fabulous. I'm back with one of my favorite topics ever, and I probably say that all the time, but honestly, I'm so excited about this episode. It is truly like a candy store for me, and I really hope that you're going to enjoy this because it's offering a little bit of a different angle. So I really am about to give you a deep dive, but before I do, I want to say that this episode is really dedicated for everyone, but especially for those of you who are drawn to any sort of flavor or expression of a healing career. Now, when I say a healing career, what I basically mean is whether it's coaching, whether it's energy work, therapy, nutrition, movement therapy, really any sort of profession that would allow you to impact others, help others, whether it's people, whether it's animals, whether it's nature, or just planet as a whole, okay? And at the same time, this episode will be very relevant for you if you are still at your misaligned day job, meaning that you are probably suspecting that you want to go into a healing profession, but perhaps you have fears, which is so common. And also, for those of you who are already in the process of setting up or launching a business of some sort of service or impact, okay? So these are two groups. And the third one, perhaps there are also some of you who have already fully transitioned, but there's always the but something might still feel off about your chosen healing path, or something feels off about your business, which is surprising to you because you thought that this feels really aligned new direction. So broadly speaking, I will refer to all of you as either healers in the make it, but I'll just call healers, or light workers. And I personally really love the word a light worker. It's really someone who is here to bring in the light with whatever combination of gifts or skills that they have, which again, I like to refer to broadly. This is not my term. This is what I'm borrowing, is their medicine in a sort of spiritual, shamanic way. Okay, let's go. By the way, also another caveat. A few episodes ago, I talked about what it actually means to be a light worker. So if you missed that episode, definitely go back and give it a listen, because today's conversation is really built on that foundation that I shared in that first episode. And this is where we're going to go a little bit deeper. I believe it was episode 58 called Are You a Light Worker? If you've listened to that, great. If not, I do recommend you to go back and listen to that introductory episode. So what I want to do today is build on that, what I already shared, and dive into something I see with so many of my clients. And honestly, something that I really lived through myself several times, actually, because I feel like it's a continuous process. Let me start by saying this. A lot of the clients I end up working with, though obviously not exclusively, but I would say a significant proportion of them are feeling really out of love. And when I say out of love, I'm putting it mildly. I'm being diplomatic here, but they really feel disconnected from their current careers. And I'm not just talking about, a mild case of Sunday scaries or a little bit of Monday blues here and there, because we all have them. What I'm talking about is the people who are burnt out, completely and utterly burnt out, and misaligned in a way that almost feels physical or does feel physical. They're a lot of the times disengaged from work that perhaps in the past might have even excited them or challenged them in some way. And they just feel demotivated to the point where even getting dressed for work may feel like such a big monumental task in the morning, because they're depleted in ways that really just the weekend rest can't help them with, or a holiday can't help them with. They're just tired. And they're fatigued, not just in their bodies, but in their souls. Some even describe feeling numb after some time. It's like they're sleepwalking through the days and going through the motions, but it's almost like they're not fully there. A lot of the times it's just dysregulation, nervous system dysregulation. And what I found, the sad part of that is that this disconnection from the work isn't just staying contained at the office, if they work at the office. It really is often bleeding into their relationships with their partners, with their children, if they have them, with their friends. It's really affecting how they are showing up in their social lives. And it's also massively impacting their sense of self-worth and their sense of purpose and direction. Okay. So these are usually some of the symptoms that I see within my clients. And on top of that, a lot of these same people who are suffering in their current careers are also simultaneously deeply interested and have always probably been interested in psychology and self-help and personal development and spirituality, just the human condition and the soul's evolution in general. And they're the ones who will be reading every book that they can get hands on about, consciousness and healing. And they're listening to all the podcasts and watching all the YouTube videos. And many of them also, by the way, have also gone through their own tough, a lot of the times extremely traumatic experiences that essentially crack them open and awaken something really profound within them, right? And whether it's secretly or openly, many of them do dream of a career that would allow them to support others, just somehow help, somehow be of service, and to make this real, tangible impact in their community, in the world in general. And it's like they just have this really hard to explain or put into words. They have this pull towards something more meaningful and more aligned with their values and what they suspect is their soul's calling, is their soul's mission. So imagine, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't have to imagine because maybe what I've described, it's exactly you at this point in time, or it was you in the past. But it's like these people are living in this incredibly painful dissonance. So there's a lot of disconnect within them because on the one hand, they absolutely know that they've outgrown their career path, the current career that they're in, and it's making them, again, figuratively or sometimes literally sick. That's how loud that knowing is, because their bodies are always giving them signals. And it's the headaches, it's the insomnia, it's the digestive issues, it's the anxiety, right? The body is communicating to them. So their souls are in a way screaming for something different, right? And on the other hand, on the other side of this dissonance, they also suspect that they'd like to help people, right? That they like to support others, like I said. They want to heal or help the collective heal and transition in this new version of our consciousness, but they also have absolutely no idea how to do that in this practical, sustainable way. Because let's be real, there are so many questions that we would need to face in order to transition, which is, do I go back to school and study again for years? Do I want that? Do I have the means to do that? Do I have to become a coach like everyone and their mama seems to be doing now? or kind of actually make any money doing this kind of work. I mean, I love it. I feel aligned, but is it even realistic? I need to support myself. I need to support my family. And is this just some sort of delusion or a pipe dream? And do people actually get paid decent money for helping others? Because a lot of these people right now are in the careers that are rewarding them financially, right? And another big fear that I hear a lot is, what if I invest all of this time and energy and it just doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I'm actually not good at this? What if, again, I'm just lying to myself? What if I'll be shit at this work? Or what if my calling is just wishful thinking? And what if I change my mind? And so on and so forth. There are so many common questions. And if some of you think that I'm reading your mind, I'm not. They're just very common. So first of all, if you're someone who is living in this dissonance right now, you're not alone. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions even of us who have walked this very path. And second, if you haven't done it already, like I said, please go and listen to that episode 58, Are You a Lightworker? Because it is kind of an essential introduction into this world of, I call them healing arts, that really we are about to explore here. And yeah, I feel like a lot of you might feel very confused. So like I mentioned in that episode, and I'm going to just give you a quick reminder, to put it broadly, a lightworker or healer is anyone whose sole mission, if you believe in incarnations, in this particular lifetime, is to help others heal, to be a seer, to be a space holder, to be a guide, to be a way shower. And if you've ever been called to do this work, or perhaps with a lot of healers, I would hear that they share other people consistently tell them that their energy or the way that they show up is somehow helpful or healing to the others. Chances are very high that you are a light worker who is essentially coming out of this cocoon right now. You're in a journey of unfolding. And now to many people who are really new to this world, like I said, the healing arts can feel absolutely overwhelming because we are constantly, especially in this day and age, I feel like we're constantly exposed to so many fascinating new modalities and healing approaches. From astrology to craniosacral therapy, from hypnotherapy to mediumship, from NLP to energy healing, from nutrition to shamanic journeying. There really is so much. We have so much access. And it can really feel like this wild, wild west out there. Like there are no rules. Like there is no structure, there is no clear path forward. A lot of us feel that. And I honestly feel a lot of compassion because I started years back when we didn't have access to so much information. I would be confused now as well. But here's what I feel like is a big part of my own purpose and mission is really to organize this world and systemize this world a little bit more and let you know that it's actually not as chaotic as it seems. There is a little bit of structure, there is a little bit of organization, there is a little bit of order. And understanding this structure can really help you find your most aligned place in this healing landscape. So to give you a super short, high-level overview, here's how you can view this healing world and all of the different approaches and different modalities. And I always say, as you're listening to me speak about this, notice which ones you resonate with the most, and you'll just feel that resonance in the body. So first of all, there is that physical pillar. So these are the modalities and all of the approaches that primarily will work through the body as a vessel for healing and transformation. So think massage therapy, think holistic nutrition, think functional medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and all of that good stuff, Ayurvedic healing and principles, movement therapy, yoga, even some somatic work and body work of all kinds, right? So these healers are usually drawn to the bodies and they understand that the body holds a lot of wisdom, a lot of trauma, and it also holds the keys to healing. So I call them the body whisperers. It's almost like they just intuitively understand the nature, the essence of our bodies. Then the second one is a mental pillar. This includes, your traditional talk therapy like cognitive behavioral therapy and Gestalt therapy, which are two of my favorite ones. Life coaching, business coaching, and any other modalities that will primarily deal with belief systems, reframes, thought patterns, analyzing and changing behavioral patterns, and just mindset work. So these healers or light workers, they essentially help people rewrite their stories, shift limiting beliefs, create new neural pathways, right? Do a lot of mental hygiene. Notice if that's the one that you're drawn to, or that's the one that you naturally just do for people. Then we have the third pillar, which is the emotional pillar, and that is everything to do with emotional processing and release and regulation. This could include sometimes nervous system work, EFT, emotional freedom technique, EMDR, grief work, inner child healing, some somatic practices. Again, somatic practices would usually bridge the physical and emotional work, so they have aspects of both of these pillars. And healers that choose this pillar or primarily operate in this pillar usually love to create safe containers for people to feel, process, and integrate their emotional or traumatic experiences. And then the last but not least, and again, these are really broad umbrella pillars. The last one is energetic pillar, and this all to do with the unseen world, the subtle energies, the spiritual realm. So it's energy healing like Reiki, it's channeling, it's mediumship, it's all kinds of energetic adjustments, it's working with chakras and energy centers, it's aura work and aura cleansing, it's shamanic healing, essentially working and collaborating with guides and higher consciousness. And these healers, again, work beyond the visible plane. And a lot of the times, these are the modalities that they'll be drawn to and excited about the most. So as you can see, there is a little bit of structure here. And while, again, you might be interested in all of them, and I will say most lightworkers are naturally curious about everything to do with any sort of healing or holistic method or the new supplement or the new, or Akashic records, like we're just curious. But you will usually have a foundation in one or two of these pillars, while the others will remain more like accessories, or think of them like supporting elements to your core work. Okay, so hopefully it makes sense so far. So for example, again, I love examples because I feel like these help us understand the soul of the material that you're working with. So my coaching practice is mostly built on the mental pillar and energetic pillar. So I'm an intuitive. I receive downloads and guidance from my clients' spirit guides. So I offer this coaching with deep spiritual twist, but I'm also very interested in the physical pillar and the emotional aspects too. And I will weave in elements of those into my work when it feels aligned and when it serves my clients. However, I will mostly deal with the energetic and the mental pillars. However, I will say it did take me some time to understand my core pillars, because at the beginning, I was so confused and almost trying everything on for size and signing up for so many trainings. And I was just genuinely thinking, like, every time I would find a new modality that I would be curious about, I would be like, oh God, that's it. That's going to be the thing until I found the new one. And it was endless process. And I know that's not just my issue. I know how many new and even more seasoned healers will get completely confused a lot of the times, and it can end up being costly, both financially and energetically. But I will say this, there's nothing wrong with being curious and wanting to learn and wanting to study and wanting to improve your skill. The issue, the problem is when we use that as a way not to actually build our practices and not to actually properly work with people. And a lot of them will end up confusing curiosity with ultimate alignment, right? For example, oh, I'm so interested in astrology. That probably means I should become an astrologer and I should, study it intensively. Well, not necessarily. Most healers, pretty much everyone who's a light worker that I've met, is absolutely fascinated by astrology and know a little bit of at least high level astrology, it's like catnip for light workers. Like, we just love that. But only if you are actually meant to study deeply and teach it and use it as their primary healing modality or one of the main healing modalities, right? Or I hear a lot as well. Another common one is, oh, I love crystals and I feel drawn to their energy. And I saw this course online, I should probably become a crystal healer or, a crystal therapist. And again, maybe you are supposed to do that, or maybe crystals are just meant to be a supporting element in your work, not the foundation. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is I feel like such a crucial distinction, because when we do not understand the essence of our healing gifts, and we all have it, we end up scattered, we end up confused, and we probably will be broke. I'm sorry to say that. Again, I'm talking in these uniform terms, but there's obviously a lot of more nuance, but I need to generalize, because when we are scattered, we will doubt the future of our business. We will feel like we're constantly lacking or should become more professional or more advanced. So we will sign up for certification after certification, hoping, like I said, that each one will finally give us the clarity that we're desperately seeking. So we become these, certification collectors, accumulating credentials, but never actually building this sustainable, fully booked business if you are into building a service-based business. Does that make sense? And as you know, I am someone who, talks about this all of the time. The clarity doesn't come from collecting more certifications, from thinking more. Clarity will come from understanding your nature. And if you're a healer, really from understanding your natural gifts, your energetic makeup, and how you are very uniquely designed to serve and to create transformation in others. Now, obviously, you have the right to trial and error through it and just try a lot of things until you land on something that feels good. That's also part of the journey. But I feel like if you want to do it in a more intentional way, that's why I recorded this episode, to help you with that. I also want to share a little client journey. My client, Sarah, when she came to work with me, she already had so many certifications. I think she had a Reiki certification, some sort of life coaching certification. She was also studying to become a yoga teacher. And also she just had bought a course for teaching meditation. However, the reason why she was seeking support is because she really was feeling completely overwhelmed. And she just could not figure out how to put all of that she studied together into some sort of coherent business or an offering that would make sense. And it felt like her healing modalities were all over the place. And that was her words, not mine. That's how she would describe it. So what ended up happening, she just ended up being paralyzed by choice. And she was questioning every sort of decision, and she felt like a fraud because she couldn't pick just quote unquote one thing. And at the same time, picking just one thing also felt off, right? So stuck between the rock and the hard place. So when we started working together to identify her core healing gifts to get some clarity, what, I now call the Lightworker or the healer archetype, everything suddenly clicked into place for her because she realized that she was primarily a teacher archetype with a very strong foundation or a secondary archetype in the physical world. I refer to those as medicine keepers, who are more physical healers. So these are, infusing some of the archetypal language now. So as it turns out, the most aligned path for her was about, needing to be a practitioner of all of these modalities. She didn't have to do that, which is something that she told herself because that's what her teachers told her. She was actually meant to teach about holistic wellness and to help people integrate these approaches into their daily lives versus being a teacher or a practitioner of each of these modalities. And within like six to 8 maybe months of focusing on building her business more around her primary and secondary archetypes, she really started to build this database of online courses about creating wellness routines that stick. And while she still uses elements of all of her training, but now the way that she packages that, it serves her core purpose, which is sharing the knowledge, informing, teaching, inspiring people instead of trying to be everything for everyone or trying to shape her business based on what people tell her that she's good at. I've heard it so many times where lightworkers will come and be like, oh, you know what? So-and-so told me that I'm great at movement. Maybe I should go into, movement therapy. Now, if you're still with me, I'm not sure how long this episode is going to be, but if you're still with me, thank you. And you suspect that you're a lightworker too, perhaps, again, like I said, coming out of this spiritual closet, I want to add what I believe is the most crucial layer. One that I think is massively misunderstood in the healing arts world, in the healing industry, and definitely not spoken about enough in the business circles. That is, if you are drawn to launching a healing practice or a healing business, you absolutely should be mindful of your healing essence. Like I said, what I call your lightworker or your healer archetype. Because, and here's what I've discovered after nearly a decade of working with so many different healers in the making. Each distinct archetype will require a very specific business model and a very specific approach in order to be a success and in order to feel super aligned for that particular healing. It feels common sense, but you'd be surprised how often it's overlooked. And by the way, it's not as complicated as it may sound, as the way that I'm introducing. It really is quite simple. And this is where I feel like a lot of conventional business wisdom doesn't just become unhelpful, it actually becomes toxic for so many of the lightworkers. It's like medicine that at first was helping them can quickly turn into poison for them. Because as many of you know, traditional business models, traditional business approaches are designed for more traditional businesses. They will mostly focus on scalability and systems and standardization, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, with the healing businesses, they will often feel rigid and soulless, or sometimes even manipulative when it comes to the sensitivity and the values that the lightworkers hold. Because a lot of these more traditional models will measure success purely through metrics, and they will completely ignore the energetic alignment that is essential in healing work. And they will definitely ignore your intuitive powers, your need for authentic expression, your intuition. They will give you a script, they will give you a model, they will give you a strategy, they will give you a template to follow, but they will not ask you what you think or feel and what is your intuition telling you. And I definitely learned this the hard way. And it nearly cost me my business and my sanity, because when I first started coaching and I opened up my practice, I really didn't know any better. I followed all the traditional business advice religiously. I was so good at executing it to a T. And then I would hire business coaches who would tell me, like, niche down, follow this model, follow this strategy. And it really felt like abandoning parts of my gifts, but I didn't understand it then. And I tried to implement more aggressive marketing strategies that made my soul recoil. It felt so off. And at first, I even used to follow these scripts that felt manipulative and left me feeling like I needed to shower after I would talk to potential clients. It was often. And listen, I didn't know better. I was so determined to make this new career work. And what I did, I simply approached it with the same tenacity and the same rules I had previously been taught in finance and in management consulting. And it was all about, the process plans, the KPIs, and all of the things. Like, it's a more masculine measured approach. And I did at the beginning, and, I'm not ashamed to say I did get enrolled into quite a few, bro marketer programs. And I definitely attempted to fake it till I make it approach. and just ended up feeling like a fraud. I just didn't get why my body felt so icky. And, I did try to sell, that sort of mentality. And I followed all the launch formulas that felt pushy and inauthentic. It didn't have any soul, and I just could not optimize my conversion rates because what I was needing and wanting is genuine connection. And you know what happened? I was miserable. More importantly, my business wasn't really working because I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being myself to the point where I'd even question whether I chose a truly aligned new career path for me. It was such a scary question because I feel like I was risking so much by going all in into this new career. Like, I was asking if I was not meant to be a coach, and if I was meant to be a coach, why does the business side feel so off? And it really took me quite some time to unravel all of the musts in the business and realize that my sensitivity, my intuitive nature, my natural desire to serve, my need for this energetic alignment, they weren't some obstacles or problems that I needed to ignore or overcome in business. And it wasn't something that I needed to hide, which at first I totally hid my intuitive spiritual side, but these were actually my greatest assets. But that only became true when I did decide to drop a lot of the rules and start building a business model that first and foremost honored and leveraged my nature and what I now call the medicine that I had for the world. Okay. So again, let me give you some more specific examples of how this plays out in real life, because I think this is where it gets really practical and really eye-opening. And again, as you listen to this, notice if you've experienced that or maybe seen other people share about that, because I find that is so common. So for example, imagine a healer with what I call a mother archetype. Mother archetype is basically someone who naturally creates transformation through being able to hold these deep, nurturing, safe spaces. And they thrive on intimate relationships, and they prefer smaller groups or especially one-on-one connection. And they just can hold the sacred space for many individuals. So imagine this light worker with the primary mother archetype, who's the nurturer, the lover, trying to build a business around large group programs with minimal personal interaction, or high volume online courses with perhaps hundreds of students that this person, this healer, never gets to know personally. Do you know what that will do? Do you know what will happen? Because what I've seen happen, that despite their best efforts, despite their talent or marketing budget, whatever it is, and that's again a very common advice from certain marketing professionals, is to go big, right? So despite their efforts, they likely will struggle with client attraction and retention, and sometimes even satisfaction, and they will also be very unlikely to enjoy the day-to-day of the business. And that's not because it's misaligned or not because they lack skill or aren't good at what they do, but because simply this business model fundamentally conflicts with how they naturally create transformation in others. It really is as simple as that. Isn't it wild how much it can affect the business side? But again, a lot of the common advice out there right now in particular is scale, scale, scale. Even if you're a healer, even if you're a light worker, scale, scale, scale. Start with memberships, start with groups, go one-to-many model. But for someone with this primary archetype, their own healing medicine, if they were to follow, and a lot of them do, but if they were to follow this common advice, this will become, like I said, their poison. And they may completely abandon ship, assuming that healing is wrong for them, or like, I love to help people, but I just can't crack the business side of it. When in fact, it's how they chose to build out their business that is misaligned, not the actual path that they chose to be a healer, to be a coach, whatever that mother archetype chooses. And I had a client like this, Maria. She was so incredibly gifted at holding space for deep healing. And mother archetype is archetype I do not necessarily have. So I'm always fascinated when I meet these light workers. So she was so great. She was so loving. She was so good at holding space, but she kept on trying to build group programs because the program she joined had told her that that's how you grow. That's how you replace your income. So she would launch these programs and either get very few signups, or the people who did join would leave feeling like, something was missing or off, or like there was just lack of chemistry between the practitioner and the clients. And obviously, as a result, she would feel like a failure and she would question and she would feel so confused. Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm actually doing what my business coaches, the business program told me. But when Maria shifted to building a business small, just focusing on intimate, more one-on-one work and very, very small, high-touch group experiences, say, I don't know, max 6 to 7 people maybe, that's when things started to really connect and feel so much more aligned and enjoyable for her. And it felt like she really started attracting more aligned soulmate clients who were naturally drawn to her energy. And her work did start to feel like she's on the right track rather than depleting her and making her spin all the time. So she really kept it at heart and continued to build and grow her business around her mother archetype, honoring the needs and the gifts of this particular archetype. And she now actually makes more money working with fewer people because her clients get such profound results. And then they end up just referring everyone they know to her. And that is usually the paradox. Our brain will tell us it makes no sense. I should go big to earn the money, where usually the opposite is true. I should go for alignment. Now, on the flip side, imagine someone with a teacher archetype, someone who naturally is designed to share the wisdom with usually larger groups. These are the people who get energized by creating more of these structured learning experiences and seeing people have those aha moments, especially in groups and communities. So this person is designed to impact in a big way. And if that person tries to build a business solely on one-on-one work, they will very likely feel constrained and feel unfulfilled. And even if they're, technically successful, they will feel like something is missing, like they're being put off from work. And a lot of the times it manifests as them starting to avoid their business altogether, avoid showing up on social media, avoid sending emails, which is such a shame for them and such a loss for all of us who might need their particular way of explaining or conveying or sharing certain knowledge. That's how powerful this misalignment between our healer archetypes and our business can be. I also worked with a healer once who had been doing a lot of these one-on-one sessions for years, and she was starting to burn out. So what she was thinking, again, which is very common, is, oh, maybe healing work isn't for me. Maybe I should look at another career pivot. But when we identified that she was actually a teacher archetype, she really shifted again, like with the previous client that I told you about. She just shifted in creating more like group experiences. I think she added a membership eventually, and that truly allowed her to go from feeling drained by her work, or sometimes even resentful of her clients, which is so awful and so not fair on her clients, to absolutely falling in love with her craft again, and her income again increased massively because she could serve more people in her zone of genius. But notice she didn't choose this model for money. She chose it because that truly felt more expansive and more exciting for her. And as I always say, abundance will follow alignment, not the other way around. And another example that I want to share with you with a completely different archetype is the revolutionary archetype. So these are healers who are such powerhouses. There's so much fire in their archetype, but they're here to challenge systems, to create big changes, to shake things up. And if they try to build a business around this gentle, nurturing, one-on-one healing sessions, they'll feel stifled. They will start feeling angry. But, put them in front of, a cause, put them in charge of a systematic change and advocating for change, that's where they can lead and thrive. That's where the fire needs to be directed. By the way, I'm starting to talk about these archetypes. If you're curious to learn about these 10 Lightworker archetypes, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I will be sharing about them in more of the coming episodes. And I do have a quiz that will help you identify your healing archetypes, your primary and your secondary healing archetype, which I'm so thrilled about because I truly, sincerely believe it can be such a game changer for so many healing business owners. And the problem I see way too often, and it truly just breaks my heart because, like I said, that's part of my purpose. And I feel like it can be avoided so easily, is that in the traditional business world, we're really taught to follow formulas without considering our unique energetic makeup. And even a lot of business coaches, and listen, there are so many aligned, amazing business coaches. I worked with many. I'm not throwing any shade, but a lot of business coaches will tell you to implement their proven system without any regard for whether that system aligns with how you naturally are here to create transformation. Because even though that will involve in change, we do have the core and the essence. It's kind of like our fingerprint. It's unique. And then on the other hand, when I look at all of the spiritual circles and the spiritual industry, we often in there focus deeply on the healing work itself. We will focus on our modalities and on our gifts without addressing the practical business structures that are needed to actually sustain this work long term. So in there, we'll talk about the purpose and the calling, but we rarely finish talking about how to translate that into a sustainable and, most importantly, aligned business model for us. So as you can see, there's another disconnect between these worlds, and we need both in order to serve people. So this disconnection between spiritual gifts and the practical business strategy, a lot of the times will lead to countless healers falling into some of, a few devastating patterns. And I'm going to share with you a few common ones and see if you resonate with them. So they either quickly start burning out, trying to force themselves, like I said, into these business models that completely drain them. And I see this all the time because also I've been that, like I shared, but the healers will be pushing themselves to show up in ways that feel fundamentally wrong. Right? They'd be like, oh, I need to be consistent, so let me put out whatever content I can put out. I don't care if it's aligned. I just need to put it out. Yes, sometimes it's true because done over perfect, but a lot of the times that leads them to more misaligned. So for instance, they're trying to be extroverted when they're introverted, or they're trying to do group work when they're meant to do one-on-one, or they're trying to be salesy when their gift is actually to be nurturing, and that is what's going to attract the right clients, right? So that's one pattern that I see. Or they remain perpetually under earning despite having this profound, a lot of the times, life-changing gift. So they're doing this beautiful work. Their clients love them, but they just can't correct it. They can't figure out how to create the financial sustainability because, again, they're using these business strategies that do not match their particular archetypal nature. So that's another common consequence of not following that archetypal nature. Or thirdly, and this one is so common, it actually hurts. They are constantly shifting strategies. So it's kind of like the headless chicken energy. Sorry for the grotesque image, but they're trying something new every few months. They never implement anything long enough to gain real momentum and to actually understand whether this approach is aligned and whether it actually is working and translating into, the money or more clients or whatever the goal is. And they become this like shiny object syndrome healers, always looking for the next strategy, the next launch method, the next marketing approach, or new healing modality that will finally work. So meaning these are the people who are always feeling restless and they're looking for answers outside of them. But as you're probably already gathering, the main message of this episode is when you understand first your primary, then your secondary Lightworker archetype, which will then form the foundation for your aligned business. You can finally start gaining that crystal clarity on these crucial elements of your healing business. I want to share some of them in case you were looking for answers again around these. So first, you will understand which business model will feel energetically sustainable for you in particular, specifically. Not what works for other people, not what some guru says is the most profitable right now, because it's changing all the time, so it's really hard to keep up, but what will actually feel nourishing and aligned for your unique makeup, okay? And that is really, really important. Secondly, what understanding your archetypes will help you do is learn how to structure your offers for that maximum impact. When you know your archetype, you will understand whether you're meant to work one-on-one, whether you need to do small groups, whether you need to go large and go to big audiences and look into maybe speaking and becoming a speaker, keynote speaker, whether you need to work in intensive containers or whether you need to offer and not offer ongoing support, whether you need to do products, you'll know how to package your gifts in a way that will be creating that deepest transformation and will be creating the most impact for your people, because this is at the end of the day what we're all here to do. Third, it will allow you to understand your more natural marketing style that will attract those soulmates clients. And that marketing strategy will feel easy and authentic for you. And you won't have to feel like you need to force yourself into these marketing approaches that, make you want to hide. And when you understand that archetype, marketing can become the natural expression of who you are, because it's almost like it gives you permission to just embrace what you already always suspected and just be more of that. And that authenticity is always magnetic. The fourth piece is that it will allow you to create support systems that you need specifically to thrive. And different archetypes will need different kinds of support systems. Some will need community, others will need solitude, some will need structure, others will need more flexibility. So again, it allows you to become very intentional with how you create support system for yourself, but also for your clients. And the last one is it will give you some indication on your ideal pricing strategy and the client journey, because your archetype will influence how people will discover you, how they should work with you, what kind of investment will feel aligned for the transformation that you create. And I feel like these are the ones these elements that I've just named, they really are the essence and the core of any sort of aligned healing business. So this is why I'm so passionate about this. And this is why understanding that archetype isn't just some, nice to know personality quiz, that I'll do for fun. It really can become the foundation of every aligned business decision moving forward, where you will need to hire a coach when you are changing the strategy. You can always go back to your archetype. And once you understand that nature, it's almost like you have your personal compass. You have your North Star that can be navigating you moving forward as you will grow, as you will continue to expand and evolve within your business. So hopefully that is making sense. Like I said, I really want to make sure that this does not sound dogmatic, that this does not sound like this is the solution for your problems. This is just years and years and years of my experience packed into this little quiz and the pattern recognition and the downloads that I'm receiving. And again, I want to also share a few examples of how this works in practice, because I feel like it can get really nuanced and beautiful. So like I mentioned, when it comes to the archetypes, we'll have the primary, which is the core archetype, and then we'll have the secondary archetype, which is like a supportive actor, if you will. And there obviously will be some other influences, but these two are really the most important. And I feel like they provide the most information when it comes to how to approach our healing work. So our primary archetype is like this dominant healing language. Okay, it's your mother tongue, if you will. It's how you will naturally create transformation without even thinking about it. I'll even go to say it's so natural that you might even take it for granted, and that happens a lot. So for example, if you are primarily a medicine keeper, so say, I don't know, you've been obsessed with the traditional Chinese medicine, for example, then working with the physical body and perhaps the herbs and certain supplements, it will come just as naturally as breathing. It's almost becomes this intuitive knowledge. And when someone is feeling off, you will probably first and foremost will feel inclined to ask about their physical health, not about their mental health, not about their energetic health. You'll go into the physical body and you'll say like, hey, have you been sleeping well? Have you been hydrating? Have you been moving? How much have you been, what supplements have you been taking? This is where your mind will naturally go, and you assume that's common sense or that's common way to address when someone is feeling off, which is not true. Because if you're primarily a mystic, it may not even occur to you to ask about the hydration. Then you probably first ask about their energetic hygiene, and you'll be like, who are you spending time around? Like, what countries and environments did you visit? Does that make sense? See how beautiful, nuanced it is? And it may have been really hard for you to grasp it like that because, well, we know what we know. And, light workers will not always compare notes like that with others, and they just assume that we all operate in a similar fashion. While it really couldn't be further from the truth. We are unique, but there's certain patterns in this uniqueness. And I feel like when you're operating in that primary archetype, you really will feel alive. You really will feel in flow. You'll feel completely yourself. It will be all of those moments where time will feel like it's disappearing when you're doing this work, and people will then be naturally more drawn to your energy. And the results that you create, I mean, it almost feels like too good to be true. I hear that a lot from my clients. It feels almost like magical, where you're like, I really didn't do anything. I just showed up. I was myself. And then I'm getting all this praise and people are paying me money. And I'm like, hello, that's the beauty of alignment. And that's the beauty of you aligning with your Lightworker archetype. Now, when we look at your secondary archetype, so it almost like it adds depth and it adds color and it adds flavor to your work. It's like that perfect spice that enhances your main dish. And it will not necessarily be the star of the show, but I feel like without it, something would feel like it's missing. And it would feel like something is off. Like you are not necessarily operating using your full power and your full capacity. So let me give you an example to really demonstrate what it's like. So again, say we go back to that revolutionary, the fiery revolutionary who has teacher as their secondary archetype. That will bring them the ability to articulate those kind of more disruptive, these new ideas in a more structured and accessible way. So if they're, say, for instance, passionate about LGBTQIA plus rights, they will not just go on protests or post content online. They will also organize workshops, and they're advised to create courses to educate people, or maybe even go in corporate and spread the awareness and really be that space that is not only disruptive and wants to shout about what's wrong, but is also able to teach and educate others. Does that make sense? Or for example, an architect with an artist as their secondary archetype. And again, like I said, I'll share more about these archetypes. I'm just going to give you a little teaser. But an architect with a secondary artist, it was just, by the way, such a fun, interesting combination. I love these combinations. So they would probably infuse the systems and structures that architects like to create with more beauty and creative expression and infuse more aesthetics. And such a combination, for example, would do really great in being in content creation and social media in general, whether they want to maybe support other healers who also have artists as one of their archetypes. That would be a beautiful combination. So as you see, understanding these unique combinations is what will make your healing work truly special and truly hard to copy. because no one else will have your exact blend of gifts. That's why copying someone else's business model rarely works long term, even if they're in the same field, even if they're wildly successful. So we want to be mindful of that, because your archetype is essentially, for especially for healers and light workers, what we're talking about here is kind of like your sacred map, and it shows how your soul will naturally choose to move in the world. And it's not really something also that you learn or develop. That's the good news for so many of you who think that you need more certification to be qualified. It's already embedded in your energy, in how you naturally tend to do things, even in the way that you talk, even in the way that you connect with people. It really is already there within you. And the archetype will affect everything, like I said, from the way that you naturally will interact with your clients, to how you should structure your offerings. It will also shape your communication style and marketing style, and it will affect what kind of business model will feel actually sustainable and enjoyable and energizing to you. It will affect even the way that you prefer to deliver your gifts, your methods, your approach, right? It really is the fundamental piece. However, most importantly, I feel like understanding your archetype will also give you permission to do something that we all want to do, is just build a business that honors your nature, instead of constantly trying to squeeze yourself into someone else's mold and trying a million and one things and still feeling like something is off. Because we don't have time for that, okay? The world needs your specific medicine right now. I've been saying that forever. I feel like now this is more true than ever before. And like I said, the reason why I wanted to record this episode is because I worked with so many, I don't want to call them baby healers, but they're like budding healers who feel so overwhelmed with all of the offers, all of the modalities, the algorithm that is so aggressive, targeting them with all of these school of thoughts and approaches out there. And they really have no idea where to start, how to choose, how to build that aligned, sustainable business that actually lasts and is not something that they abandon after a few months or a few years. And then, like I said, when you add on top of that all of the fears and mental gremlins and those well-meaning, loved ones around us and their opinions about our quote-unquote unrealistic career change, it really becomes this like hot mess express that makes these talented healers just freeze and stall and then question everything and continue making the same decisions and stay in misaligned jobs and misaligned places. And do you want to know the only reason why all of this noise on social media around us, especially in the healing community, succeeds in distracting us? It's only because we have not fully recognized and we have not fully accepted who we truly are, what our gifts are really about, and what's the nature of these gifts. We haven't built that centered, grounded awareness of our archetypal nature. And when we don't have that center, it really is like everything fits and nothing fits at the same time. Does that make sense? It is completely confusing and it's completely overwhelming. That's why getting to know ourselves is the key missing ingredient, and we're so tempted to skip it because we're so distracted by the how, the quick implementation, the quick results. So if you're someone who's living in the dissonance that I described at the beginning of the episode, feeling called to help others, but having no idea how to make that transition practically and in a sustainable way, I want you to know that there absolutely is a path forward. And it really starts with understanding your unique healing archetype, your unique healing nature. You don't even need to follow this system that I'm offering here, just understanding your unique healing nature and then the business model that aligns with that nature. So like I've mentioned, I actually created a free resource, which is a Lightworker Archetype quiz. And I poured my heart and a lot of nervous system dysregulation into it because, oh my goodness, building the back end of the quiz and the way that I got a download to do that was tough, okay? But it will help you discover exactly your specific Lightworker archetype combination and which of the 4 healing pillars you're naturally designed to work with. Because when you align your business with your archetype, everything else can flow in a much more natural and easy way. And that resistance will reduce or drop away completely. And you will stop feeling like you're pushing a boulder uphill and start feeling like you're actually flowing downstream, which is, as you know, which is the key and the essence in manifestation in general. So if you're listening to this episode real time, and you want to be the first one to know when this quiz goes live, there is a link in the show notes to join the waitlist. And everyone on the waitlist will get the first access to the quiz. Plus, I will add some exclusive, little bonus contents about their specific archetype and the practical next steps. Now, if you're listening to this not in real time, if you are in the future coming back to this episode, the quiz has already launched and you'll find the link in the show notes. Please, 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 please. I cannot stress this enough. It will only take a few minutes, just a few precious minutes of your life to complete this quiz. However, it can really change the trajectory of how you transition in your career, how you launch an aligned business, how you choose the modalities. All of it is there, really packed into each of your primary and secondary archetypes. And it can be such a game changer for so many of you. And it will help you build what I preach all day and every day, aligned businesses that feel like home, that feel like you, that give you joy, that give you energy, that feels first and foremost nurturing for you, because that's what we are also here to do, is to take care of ourselves and to make sure that there is self-care weaved into our business practices as well. And just a reminder, if you're someone who still feels very confused about which modality or healing path is truly aligned for you, or maybe you have taken other assessments and other quizzes and you're still not clear on what your next steps are, I also offer free, super short, I think they're 30 minutes, clarity calls, where we can explore your specific situation and I can help you identify a more aligned healing path. We might even get down to your core healing gifts, and then we'll talk about what that practically means for you and the next steps. You can schedule those calls through the link in the show notes. This is something that I do to give back to the community. It's not a sales call. It's something that I choose to offer to those of you who are in the place of confusion like I was so many years ago, like so many of my clients were in. So there you have it. I wanted to add, like I said, another layer to this Lightworker universe that we're creating to show you that you have your specific archetypes and that they will and they can affect the success of your business so significantly. And I just want to wrap up. Oh my goodness, it's quite a long episode, but I just want to wrap up to remind you that the world does need your medicine. I know sometimes it's so hard to believe, but the world needs you. It needs your unique way of creating transformation, and it needs your specific archetypal gifts. And yes, you can absolutely make a thriving living sharing these gifts with the world. That's what I have for you today. Have a magical week. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you enjoy this content, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast and leave a quick review to help us share the message of aligned work with the world. And if you'd like to learn more about how to find and transition into your very own purpose-led career or business that feels like getting paid for being yourself, make sure you check out the episode notes below. Have a wonderful week.